It was an ordinary morning inside a tall glass building in the city. The offices were still quiet, the air filled with the faint sound of cleaning tools and the smell of freshly polished floors. The cleaner moved slowly from one hallway to another, wiping the tables and making sure everything looked perfect before the workers arrived. She wore a simple uniform and always carried a small smile. She didn't speak much, only when necessary, and her voice carried a soft accent that told she wasn't from this country. Most people didn't notice her, and those who did rarely looked twice. To them, she was just another cleaner doing her job. But what no one knew was that behind that quiet presence was someone who had lived a life full of knowledge, hard work, and deep experiences. She never spoke about her past because no one ever asked. People only saw her mop and bucket, not the person holding them. That morning, something unusual happened. The CEO of the company arrived much earlier than usual. He was known for his sharp suit, expensive watch, and quick temper. He didn't like anything out of place and often walked around as if every second of his time was worth gold. As he walked through the hallway, he saw the cleaner struggling with her vacuum cleaner. It had stopped working suddenly. She gently tapped it and muttered something softly in her own language, trying to fix it. The CEO stopped for a moment, watching her with a raised eyebrow. "Maybe you should learn proper English before trying to fix that," he said with a smirk. His tone was light, but the words carried a sting. The cleaner looked up, surprised for a second. She gave a small, polite smile and said softly, "I am sorry, sir." Then she went back to work quietly. A few employees nearby tried to hide their laughter. The CEO chuckled, clearly amused by his own comment, and walked away. He didn't think twice about it, it was just a joke to him. But to her, those words stayed. She didn't let her face show it, but deep inside she felt a small pain. She had faced many moments like this before, people judging her because of the way she spoke. But instead of anger, she only felt a quiet strength growing inside her. As the morning moved on, the office became busy. People filled the rooms, meetings began, phones rang. The cleaner finished her work in the hallway and moved to the conference area to make sure it was ready for an important meeting later that day. She didn't know much about the company's schedule, but she could sense that something big was coming. Around noon, a group of guests arrived. They were international business partners, important people from different countries. The CEO welcomed them personally, shaking hands and smiling confidently. Everything was going smoothly until a small problem appeared. The translator who was supposed to help with communication had not arrived yet. The CEO's face tightened with frustration as he realized several of the guests couldn't understand him clearly. The meeting began to fall apart quickly. Some guests spoke French, others Italian, and one man spoke only Mandarin. The CEO tried his best with simple English using hand gestures, but it only made things more confusing. The guests looked uncomfortable and started speaking among themselves, their expressions showing disappointment. The staff stood frozen, not knowing what to do, and then quietly the cleaner appeared at the door. She had come to refill the water bottles in the meeting room, unaware of what was happening inside. When she heard the confusion, she paused. After a moment, she took a small step forward and spoke softly to one of the guests in fluent French. Everyone turned their heads toward her. The man she spoke to suddenly smiled in relief and answered her quickly. The cleaner continued the conversation smoothly, translating what the CEO was trying to say into perfect French. The room went silent. The staff who had been standing in the back exchanged shocked glances. The CEO blinked, unsure if he had heard right. Before he could say anything, another guest from Italy asked a question. The cleaner turned toward him and answered in clear, natural Italian. The man's face lit up with surprise and joy. The CEO stared at her, completely speechless. The same woman he had mocked just a few hours ago was now saving his important meeting from disaster. The cleaner moved with quiet confidence, translating back and forth between the guests and the CEO. She didn't stumble once, her tone calm and respectful. When one of the Chinese delegates spoke, she responded fluently in Mandarin, making sure the message was clear. The guests looked impressed, nodding gratefully each time she translated. It was as if the entire meeting had suddenly come alive again, all because of her. The CEO could feel his pride fading with every passing minute. He realized that this woman, whom he had judged for her accent, was more educated and skilled than most people in that room, including himself. When the meeting ended, the guests thanked her warmly. Some even shook her hand and said she was the reason everything went smoothly. The CEO stood nearby, his face unreadable. For the first time in a long while, he didn't have anything clever to say. As the guests left, the cleaner began collecting the glasses and papers from the table, just like she always did. She didn't act proud or expect praise. She was simply doing her job. But when she turned around, she found the CEO standing there, still watching her with a different look this time, one of respect and curiosity. He finally spoke, his voice lower than usual. How do you know all those languages? The cleaner smiled gently. Before I came here, I worked as a teacher and translator, she said. I taught languages in my country and worked with embassies. But when I moved here, I couldn't find a job right away, so I started cleaning. A job is still a job. The CEO looked at her, feeling a wave of guilt. I didn't know, he murmured. She nodded slightly. Most people don't ask, she said softly. But that's okay. I don't mind. Everyone is fighting their own battles. Then she picked up her cleaning tools and walked out of the room quietly, leaving him standing there in thought. For the rest of the day, the CEO couldn't stop thinking about her words. He realized how quick people were to judge others by how they spoke or what job they did, without knowing their story. That morning he had laughed at her accent, but now he could only admire her grace and intelligence. As he looked around the busy office, he saw the other employees whispering about what had happened. Some looked embarrassed. Others seemed inspired. The cleaner had changed the entire atmosphere of the company in just one afternoon, without shouting, without showing off, just by being herself. That evening, when the cleaner finished her work and walked out of the building, she felt lighter. She didn't know that her quiet act had left a mark on everyone. She only knew that she had done the right thing by helping when it was needed. The streetlights glowed softly as she walked toward the bus stop, her steps calm and steady. Inside the office, the CEO watched her leave through the window. For the first time, he smiled, not with pride, but with humility. He promised himself that the next time he met someone who spoke differently or worked a humble job, he would remember this day, the day he learned that respect has no accent, and that true intelligence never shows off. And somewhere deep inside, the cleaner carried the same gentle strength she always had, knowing that sometimes dignity speaks louder than any language. The next morning, the office felt different. People whispered quietly in the hallways, still talking about what had happened the day before. The cleaner, as usual, came early and began her work silently. She didn't expect anyone to notice her. To her, it was just another day, another floor to clean, another room to organize. But this time, something had changed. Not in her routine, but in how others saw her. When the staff saw her pass by, they didn't ignore her like before. Some greeted her with small smiles. One of the young interns even held the door open for her, something no one had done before. The cleaner simply smiled back, humble as always. She didn't crave attention. She only wanted to do her job well. Meanwhile, the CEO sat in his office, replaying the events in his mind. He remembered how she had handled the situation with calmness and intelligence, speaking to those foreign guests like a professional interpreter. Her poise, her confidence, her kindness, it all left him thinking about how wrong he had been. He couldn't shake the guilt of having mocked her just because of her accent. Later that morning, he asked his assistant to call her to his office. When she entered, she looked slightly nervous. She wasn't used to being called upstairs. The CEO stood up when she came in, which already surprised her. He had never done that for any cleaner before. Please, have a seat, he said politely. She sat down slowly, holding her cleaning gloves in her lap. The CEO cleared his throat. I wanted to thank you for yesterday, he said. You saved the meeting. I don't know what would have happened without you. She smiled gently. I was just trying to help, she replied. Anyone would have done the same. He shook his head. No, not everyone could do what you did. You were calm, professional, and you spoke 5 languages like it was nothing. You didn't just help. You impressed everyone in that room, including me. The cleaner stayed quiet for a moment, then said softly, Thank you, sir. I've always believed language is a bridge. It connects people who might otherwise never understand each other. Her words struck something deep in him. He had spent years running a business, chasing profits, building a name for himself. But in that moment, he realized he had forgotten something simple: respect. He leaned forward. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "You said you used to teach languages?" She nodded. "Yes. Back in my country, I worked as a teacher and translator for embassies. I loved my job, but when I moved here, it wasn't easy. My qualifications weren't recognized and my savings ran out quickly. I needed work, and this cleaning job was the first thing I could find." The CEO felt a lump in his throat. "That must have been hard." She smiled again, her eyes calm. "It was, but I never felt ashamed. Work is work. Every job has dignity if it's done with honesty." For a moment, the CEO didn't know what to say. Her words carried more wisdom than most business books he had ever read. After a pause, he said, "You know, I think we can do something better with your talents. Would you be open to working with our international relations team? We handle many clients from overseas, and your skills could really help." The cleaner looked surprised. She wasn't expecting that. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes," the CEO said with a small smile. "You've earned it." Her eyes softened. "Then yes, sir. I'd be happy to help in any way I can." From that day, everything began to change for her. She was given proper training, and soon she joined the company's communication department. Her new role allowed her to use her language skills to assist with international clients. But even with her new position, she never lost her humility. She still greeted the cleaning staff every morning, helped them when she could, and reminded everyone that no job was small. Over time, she became one of the most respected people in the building. Employees came to her not just for translations, but also for advice. Her patience and kindness made her a quiet source of strength for many. The CEO, too, changed. He started treating everyone differently, from the security guard at the door to the tea lady in the break room. He made sure his managers understood that respect wasn't something you gave only to titles or degrees. It was something every human being deserved. One afternoon, several months later, the CEO invited all his employees to a company gathering. He stood on stage and began to speak about teamwork, humility, and the importance of never judging someone by appearances. Then he looked toward her, the former cleaner, sitting quietly in the crowd. He said, "Last year I learned one of the most valuable lessons of my life from someone I didn't truly see at first. I laughed at her accent, but later that same voice saved me in this company from embarrassment. She reminded me that knowledge and talent wear no uniform. Today she's part of our management team, and I couldn't be prouder." The whole room broke into applause. Some people even stood to clap for her. She blushed, smiling shyly, and nodded in thanks. After the event, many employees came to her to express how inspired they felt. One young man told her that her story gave him courage to keep working hard, even when people doubted him. She listened kindly and said, "Never let anyone's words define your worth. Sometimes people speak without knowing who you really are." Outside the building, the sunset painted the sky in soft orange light. The CEO stood beside her and said quietly, "You changed the spirit of this place. Before, people only looked at results. Now they look at each other." She smiled. "Respect grows where kindness lives," she said simply. He nodded, understanding what she meant. From that day onward, every new employee who joined the company heard her story. It became a quiet lesson that the CEO made sure no one forgot. It wasn't told to glorify her, but to remind everyone that value isn't always visible. Even after years passed, she remained the same, gentle, humble, and graceful. She didn't let success make her proud, and she never forgot the people who worked quietly in the background just like she once did. Whenever she passed by the cleaners in the hallway, she greeted them warmly and sometimes helped them carry their supplies. And whenever she heard someone struggling with English or speaking with a strong accent, she always smiled and said, "Never be ashamed of how you speak. Every accent tells a story." The CEO, on the other hand, often shared this story at conferences and leadership meetings. Leadership, he would say, isn't about titles or power. It's about humility, the ability to see value where others don't. The company became known not just for its business success, but for its culture of respect. It was a place where people felt seen and valued, no matter their job or background. And it all began with one woman, a cleaner with a gentle voice and a heart full of wisdom. Years later, when she finally retired, the company organized a farewell for her. The CEO, now older and wiser, stood on stage once again. "You taught us that kindness can change an entire workplace," he said. "You reminded us that respect has no accent. And you showed us that greatness often hides in the most humble souls." The room was filled with emotion. Some had tears in their eyes. When she walked out of the building for the last time, everyone stood to applaud her. She waved goodbye with that same soft smile she had on the first day she came to clean those floors. As she stepped outside into the fresh air, she looked up at the tall building one last time. Life had taken her on a long journey, from teacher to cleaner and now to a respected mentor. She had faced laughter, judgment, and loneliness. But she had also found respect, friendship, and peace. And somewhere deep inside she felt grateful, not for the position she now held, but for the lessons life had taught her. She knew that real success wasn't about where you worked or what title you had. It was about staying kind, even when the world wasn't kind to you. As the doors closed behind her, her story remained within those walls, inspiring everyone who heard it. And though she was gone, her words still echoed softly in people's hearts. Respect every person you meet. You never know what story they carry inside.